Today's guest is someone that goes by just her first name, KoAnn. And those of you who don't know her, KoAnn Skrzyniarz is the CEO and founder of Sustainable Brands. Through Sustainable Brands, she and her team has led the global conversation about how 21st century brands can and are delivering new business value through innovation for environmental and social purpose. In addition to overseeing direction and strategy at Sustainable Brands, she writes and speaks around the world on the shift in consumer demand and the opportunity for brands to respond by changing the way they think of and deliver against their role in society. This conversation today is for anyone on a journey to create a more sustainable organization that is more people-oriented, more product-oriented, and more planet-oriented. So let's get started. Welcome to Purpose 360. I'm Carol KoAnn, and today more than ever before, companies, brands, and their partners need to stand for something beyond the bottom line. I've created this program to provide insights and ideas to share with you so that you can apply them to your work the very next day. The goal here is to up-level your purpose and to benefit companies and society. So please join us. I am so delighted to have a friend, a leader, a confidant, a just truly wonderful human being with me today. And that is KoAnn Skrzyniarz. She is the founder and CEO of Sustainable Brands. So welcome, KoAnn.
Oh, right back at you, Carol, on all fronts.
Oh, you're so sweet. And KoAnn's last name, it's one of those complicated last names. And so she is so famous. She's like Beyonce. Everybody just calls her KoAnn. So we're going to call her KoAnn. So we're going to talk about the history of Sustainable Brands and how KoAnn has helped to just create this community of amazing, she calls them courageous optimists. But let me read you a little bit about Sustainable Brands. Sustainable Brands is the premier global community of brand innovators who are shaping the future of commerce worldwide. Since 2006, Sustainable Brands' goal has been to inspire, engage, and equip business leaders and practitioners who see social and environmental challenges as an essential driver of brand innovation, value creation, and positive impact. And I love that on their website, they have these 3 simple but profound beliefs. And let me read them. We believe, 1, brands are uniquely positioned to align business and society on the path to a flourishing future. I love that, flourishing future. 2, those brands that embrace this challenge will prosper in the 21st century. And 3, accomplishing this challenge requires a new way of seeing the world, along with a new set of skills, tools, and collaborations and collaborators too. And that's what Sustainable Brands is all about. It's this exceptional global community of, as KoAnn says, courageous optimists. So let's get into it. I want to start, KoAnn, by just asking, who is KoAnn Skrzyniarz? And why do you do what you do?
Oh, this is always the hardest question that anyone ever asks me, right? I am a connector. I'm a systems thinker. I am a believer. I am a change maker. I'm a hope generator who believes that despite all of the challenges that we have in the world today, that collectively we can create a better future. So I guess that's some ways to describe who I feel like I am.
And then you also call yourself a compassionate pragmatist. What does that mean?
Good point. I also really, first of all, start with the assumption that most of us bring the intention to do right in the world to what we do every day at work, just as we do in our lives, but that we sometimes feel hampered by either permission to do what we feel is right or an understanding of how to do what the right thing is, or how to do the right thing in the context of rules that don't necessarily support what we know to be right. And so, we are an organization that starts with that assumption of positive intention, and recognizes that it's not always easy. So we don't expect perfection.
And it's not always easy, but you have created this community that is quite amazing. And, when I go to the website, and of course I get push emails every single day, it's like going to Whole Foods. It's so delicious. And I just want to read for our listeners a little bit about what was on the website today. There is something for everyone. So the lead story is corporations standing up for voting rights, not politics. And then underneath that, it says, will sustainable consumer behaviors attitudes persist post-pandemic? In supply chain, 10 global companies taking action towards living wages. Love the importance of living wages. Then in marketing and communications, P&G, Dove, both push for more equitable representation in media. Then you have a whole area on waste. Then you have corporate membership network. And I love that you have a story there about Mattel unveiling the first of its kind carbon neutral Matchbox Tesla Roadster die-cast vehicle made from 99% recycled materials to serve as a brand blueprint. I think that is so cool. But there's more, okay? There's the innovation area, how AI is enabling smarter, scalable, sustainable water solutions. In the walking the talk section, not all carbon credits are created equal. In the chemistry, materials, and packaging section, even COVID can't stop sustainable packaging, and on and on. I'm sure our listeners can go, wow, that's amazing content. And so when you launched in 2004, KoAnn, did you have the vision that you were going to be this incredible grocery store of content and learning and tools?
Absolutely, that was the vision. The notion of inspiring, engaging, and equipping was core to our positioning and value proposition promise from the beginning. And we really knew that if we could get people engaged through our publishing platform in understanding the changing landscape and get them, committed to doing something different, that ultimately would get them excited enough to co-create the future that we all wish for. So we're pretty well on target with the same product strategy that we've had from the beginning.
And you worked in media and consulting for almost 20 years in the B2B world. What was that eureka moment that sparked your desire to start a community for people related to sustainable brands?
Well, honestly, the aha moment was sitting at NASA in 2002 and listening to Bill McDonough speak about redesigning the way that we make and do everything. But that really sat on top of a long, many-year history of various bits of exposure to the problem set. So it wasn't just that moment. It was just that was the catalyst or the straw that sparked my feeling that I had to do something.
And what was the practice of sustainability like in 2004, 2005?
Very much considered a cost to the business, a risk mitigation play and mandate, and not at all seen as a strategic opportunity for creating new value for companies. So that's really, two things we started out doing. One was trying to define sustainability as not just environmental, but as environmental, social, and economic, and about the need to intersect all of those things positively. And then, also really redefining what brand means. right? Helping people understand that brand today and in the 21st century is about who you are, what you do, and how you do it, not just how you talk about yourself or your tagline or your brand position. And then, therefore, there was a need to integrate the sustainability silo into all aspects of the company. So that's really been the journey.
Let's take a break and talk about the numbers. Sustainable Brands, while it was founded in 2006, it has grown rapidly, especially in the last 10 years. They have over 1 million unique annual visitors to their website, over 50,000 subscribers to their twice-weekly newsletter, and it is absolutely one that you can't miss. It has got something for everybody. They have over 80 member companies that represent almost $3 trillion in revenue, over 5 million employees, and they reach over 5 billion consumers on a daily basis around the globe. They also have over 150,000 followers on social media, and whenever I get a tweet or I get an Instagram from Sustainable Brands, I open it immediately because I know it's going to have valuable information. I love that you say that redefining a brand.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the design, but who you are, how you do it, and what you do. Did I get that right?
Who you are, what you do, and how you do it. Yes, exactly.
I know that when I was starting out in the 80s, and I was linking companies and social issues, people would pat me on the head and go, "Oh, aren't you a sweet thing? Oh, you're doing philanthropy." And, it was so frustrating. And, you have been this almost singular force. I mean, you took a world even bigger than what I was doing. And so can you talk about, a moment or two where you said, we're making some progress. I mean, I know it's not perfect, but we're making some progress. Can you recall a story that says you were moving forward in redefining brands and redefining sustainability?
Oh, gosh, there have been so many milestones along the road. I mean, our ambition at the beginning was to engage the sustainability and CSR professional in understanding that they could be a more strategic asset to the company, but mostly to get them to bring other functions in the company to the table. And so, over time, we had targeted from the beginning getting marketing leadership and innovation leadership to the table with the sustainability folks into the same conversation. And, so as we have watched the makeup of our community shift from being solely focused on the CSR and sustainability people into 35 or so % of our audience now is brand marketing strategy, and about this 30% is sustainability and CSR, and the rest of it is other parts of the organization that are starting to recognize how material they are to transforming the business in support of a changing brand landscape. Just the evolution of the audience that we're bringing together is one key marker.
And so, is there another marker that you want to?
So many. I mean, just the number of companies that are now setting science-based goals, for example. We've been advocating for science-based goals for 15 years, and now I think there are hundreds of companies that have now signed on to commit to using science-based goals to measure their progress. The number of CMOs we have at the table today, the number of brands that are really starting to understand sustainability as a growth opportunity, which is the pivotal aha for us starting the company. We really wanted to change the whole dialogue, as you suggested, away from this work being about responsibility and help people understand that it needed to be and could be a catalyst for growth. The fact that we're now seeing that recognition is very exciting and is, I think, what's partly underneath the momentum we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, you're one of these oh, you're an overnight success. I mean, look at, but you toiled. I mean, I know we've had so many conversations late at night, which is like, oh my God, I've got to go through this again. For our listeners, can you just talk about the universe of sustainable brands? Because the community is both online and offline and events and products. So can you just explain it? Because it is, again, it's like going into Whole Foods. It's everything that you could want and then some.
Well, you're right. We have a digital publishing platform that you've kindly acknowledged, and we reach over 1 million users, unique users monthly. And honestly, we're not tracking our international reach effectively because we now have communities of practice in 14 different countries around the world on 5 continents. And most of those have digital communities too. So we've got the digital publishing platform. We've got our events that are running around the world. We've got the corporate member network where companies that have committed to try and learn and accelerate their learning and behavior change are coming together for peer-to-peer learning. And then we have the whole collaborative initiative that is a couple years old. That is one of the things we're most excited about, which is Brands for Good.
As I always said, that companies had to do good, because of the transparency afforded by the internet. And it's interesting. I was listening to, I think it was Tom Friedman yesterday, who was just fabulous at a conference. And he was talking about, it used to be that you had an X-ray, but now you have an MRI. And you can see every single part of the company. And so that's why my companies really, really need to walk the talk. I'm curious about the evolution of the word sustainability. Can you talk about where is sustainability in terms of its broader definition around the globe, and who's leading and who's catching up?
I don't think I would say that it's a regional answer. There's a regional answer to that question, to be honest. I still see a lot of companies here in the US and companies that would surprise you defining sustainability as simply an environmental issue. I don't see it regionally different. I mean, I do, think if you look at where we're getting the most traction in terms of size of our audience and so forth, we love that the Japan community was a little late to the table, but they're absolutely fast followers, and they're moving very quickly to catch up with the level of sophistication and the just general size of engagement in that community. Obviously, Europe has been ahead of the game when it comes to the regulatory support for driving change, which has helped that part of the world progress a little bit faster. And there have been some amazing innovations that have come out of Europe. But generally, I think we still all struggle with a systems-oriented definition to a term like sustainability, and we need to keep focused on that. I really love John Ehrenfeld's book, Flourishing, for those of your listeners who like to read. I think he does a fabulous job of really defining why the integration between environmental, social, and economic issues are core to our pursuit of a sustainable future.
Thank you for the recommendation. We'll put it in the show notes. I love you talk about this thing called the 3 H's. Be human, be helpful, be humble. Can you talk a little bit about how you created that philosophy and how it's been a guiding light for all your work at Sustainable Brands?
Well, funny you picked that up as an end note to some comments that I made, I think, at the close of a recent conference. So it's not so much that's been core to us, but I do think that there are some smart pieces of advice. On the be human side, we have come to be a little bit mechanistic in the way we show up at work. And that's partly just a function of the way that work has been defined and executed on over the last 100 years. We learned how to be exceptionally productive as a way to improve prosperity in the last century, and that served us very well. We managed to be efficient and increase our productivity by creating areas of expertise and effectively silos. So you become an expert in one thing and you do your siloed work, which was great, again, for productivity in the last century. But the result of it was that we have lost the sense of the whole. And we didn't see the complex problems that were arising as the result of our myopia in a way. And so because of our context for work, we've come to work as a little bit less than human, a little bit more of a machine. And today's complex challenges really require that we bring our whole self. And then one of the beautiful things about humans is our capacity to intuit systems. We are part of the natural system, and this is one of our problems. We've come to put ourselves at odds or opposition to nature. Nature's over there and we're over here. In fact, we're part of nature. So to the degree that we can get back to that and start to bring our whole self to the work, we're going to be better equipped to respond to the complex problems that we face today. Be humble is just the precursor to learning. And you hear people talk about a VUCA world that we live in today, volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous. And that is the fact. We all have come really face to face with that this last year during the pandemic. I personally don't believe that we're going to get through the pandemic and things are going to go back to normal, if you were. We are going to continue to experience complex challenges that are a function of the breakdown in our, ecosystems, environmental and social. And in order to, come up with the solutions that are necessary for these complex problems, we need to start with humility, understand we don't know the answers, and that's okay. We need to get comfortable with that, get comfortable with uncertainty. And, if you come to a problem with humility, you start to learn how to ask better questions and to search for new answers to questions. And so I think that's important. And, then be helpful. Business as an institution really started out trying to provide value to customers. And, we've over the course of the last 100 years, marketing determined that it could basically create the perception of needs that didn't really exist. Teach us that we think we need white teeth. Well, we don't really need white teeth, but somebody told us that we did, so we better get toothpaste that'll give it to us. The important thing I think for brands today is to really understand the real deep human needs that we have individually, as communities, as families, and as society at large, and be helpful in a way that's meaningful.
You do a lot of thought leadership, and I know that I have been on your board of advisors and that we worked on The Good Life together. So I'd love you to talk about The Good Life, because that was a guiding principle for a while. And then we're going to talk about some other things like Brands for Good and your brand transformation roadmap. So first of all, why are you doing thought leadership? And then let's talk about each one.
Well, we're a business with a purpose. And so, we have an intention to change the world and shift the way commerce is practiced worldwide. And if you're going to do that, you need to stay at the front end and certainly meet people where they are, but also keep, pulling the community forward at the pace that it's ready to move. And I'm happy to say that that the community in general and the world at large is moving faster and faster today. So that there's continuing opportunity for thought leadership. We all have to be on our toes and continue to ask the next best question. But in terms of, the question about the good life, that was a whole effort that was intended to test the hypothesis that we as humans in society are starting to recognize that consumption is not the source of happiness. And we set out to, test that assumption and find out how people are defining what a good life means to them today versus what it meant to them in the 1950s. And in fact, we're finding that people are recognizing that the things that really matter when it comes to happiness are meaningful connections to family, community, and to the environment, and a balanced, simple life. So, this notion of the Marie Kondo trend is not an isolated, individual. We all are wanting to find more simplicity in the complexity that surrounds us. And those things are taking greater priority for us generally across all demographics, which was interesting for us, whether it was regional cuts or age cuts or political affiliation cuts. Those things are taking more of a priority than money and status and personal achievement. And that's something that, creates a new environment for brands to be selling into.
And I know that you took that around the globe.
We did, I would not say universally around the globe, but we did execute it in Canada and in Japan and in Turkey and Brazil and France. And so we had a really interesting cross-section of experience there. Interestingly, Japan was the country that was lagging with young people specifically. There still was a sense of an aspiration for status and a personal achievement, which is intriguing. We've had some quite interesting discussions about why that might be, but that's another conversation.
Sure. And then you used that for 3 years?
Yes, and I think we'll come back around to continuing to test, how that is holding up, because we don't know what the pandemic has done to impact that. I hope that it will actually deepen people's feelings, but we need to retest it.
And you had a great partner. We worked with Harris. And they were lovely, and it was a wonderful collaboration. So that was great. And so from there, then you've added another thought leadership, but an amazing focus for your members, the brand transformation roadmap. So can you talk about that, and then go into Brands for Good?
After 10 years, we had a dialogue with some of the brands that we had showcased in year one. And I asked them how they felt about where they were on their journey to becoming a sustainable brand. And they all basically said they thought they'd arrived. And that okay. Gave us pause and helped us realize we really needed to be more explicit rather than just generally pointing out the direction that we are trying to take the world, because nobody has arrived. You might there are one or two top brands who've come a long way, but so we undertook to really put in writing the definition of the principles that would represent a sustainable brand once somebody has arrived, and we created 5 stages of maturity against each of those principles that would help a company self-assess themselves and help them understand where they are on the journey from being a conventional brand to becoming a sustainable brand.
And how has been the response to that from your members?
Really interesting and super helpful. We've had 208 companies so far. I think last time I looked, go through the assessment, and people are using it in very different ways. It's very interesting. We've got one global multinational family of brand companies, for example, that is using it across their whole brand portfolio to help create a brand strategy or brand architecture, looking at where various strengths are across their brand portfolio and creating internal peer mentoring groups to help them all move along the journey a little bit further. We've got companies that are bringing customers in to run them through the assessment tool to help create a new dialogue between customers and themselves. We've got companies that are using it for suppliers. We've got NGOs that are using it for their stakeholders. So we think there's a lot of really interesting opportunity here, and we're continuing to refine that tool and support resources that go against that. And we hope that we'll, through partnership and through enabling a reseller model with some of our agency and consulting community members, scale this framework so that there's a little bit more commonality about a vision for what it is we're trying to do. And
that's wise. That's really smart. So now, can you explain Brands for Good?
One of the 5 principles or characteristics of a sustainable brand is that a brand use its influence to inspire and enable sustainable living across its spheres of influence. And Brands for Good is really a collaboratory initiative aimed at helping us figure out how to do that more effectively. We recognized as a community that there is what we characterize as an intent to action gap in the consumer base. So even though there isn't a desire that's growing to live more sustainably, there's a lot of confusion, and people don't understand, what the key behaviors are that could help them do that, and they have bad habits, and they need help, changing their behavior. Just like we all do when we learn better ways to eat. The fact that we know that there are better ways to eat, we can use some nudging. So,
right.
So Brands for Good is a collaboratory initiative that's aimed at that. And there are a lot of different tools and frameworks and things that we're doing within that ambition to help support that goal.
And if any of our listeners are wondering, oh yeah, some unknown brands are the architects of brands for good. No. I will call out that Mark Pritchard, who's the global chief marketing officer for P&G, was one of the leaders for this. And you had a group of rock star companies really giving their time, their input. And so I would say
and continue to.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all continue to be absolutely actively interested. And this is the fun thing about it, is this is a co-created initiative that involves, yes, companies like Procter & Gamble and General Mills and CVS and Target and many other companies now that are actively participating in creating new thought leadership as a community.
And again, for our listeners, it's like, this is no longer a nice to do. You have to be a sustainable brand. I mean, it's just like, and again, I know that you were toiling for so many years to be in the mainstream, and you are. I tell you this all the time. When KoAnn's coming to me going, "Oh my God, this is a challenge," I go, "You are in the mainstream, woman. You are just doing a fantastic job." You also have this wonderful, wonderful learning library, and so when a company becomes a member, and by the way, listeners, whenever I get a client, I say, are you a member of Sustainable Brands? Because if you're not, we're going to go sign you up. And I get nothing for that, except I get a smile from KoAnn and know that company is going to get smarter and do it faster. So can you talk a little bit about what a new member would find?
First of all, thank you for that. Part of our ambition is to create a better landscape for service providers like you. So we hope that it's a win-win across the board, right? We want smart market that can ask for the smart help from smart people like you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Our ambition there is to both provide access to all of our library of live and virtual event content. We've got obviously years of content going back, and we have tended to be a decade ahead of the conversation. I was telling somebody the other day, we produced, and you know this, Carol, a conference on activating purpose in, I think, 2010. And I won't name the name of the consultancy, but one of the big consultancies in the world came and basically turned all of the content that we created as part of that event into a research report that they then turned around and built a consulting practice off of.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
Sold to their customers or prospects. So we've got a lot of content that's video and audio based. We've got aggregation of research reports around the world, and we have our own thought leadership there. We're ambitioning to build a whole online learning program too that really revolves around the brand transformation roadmap. So really teaching the skills that are necessary to get people from one level to the next against each of the principles of a sustainable brand.
The learning library alone is worth the membership. Let's talk a little bit about membership, because you've got all sorts of goodies. When you've got different levels, of course, and there are different costs. Can you just talk? Because I want to help recruit people for you during this conversation. They have to get off listening. I got to become a member of Sustainable Brands. And so to talk about some of the great things when someone becomes a member that they get.
So you were talking about the professional membership, which gives people access to our online premium content. Our corporate member network is really for those companies that are at the place where they recognize that they really want to get on the leadership bandwagon and they want to do it right. And so it's a peer-to-peer learning network that gets together. Pre-COVID was meeting face-to-face 4 times a year. But now we're meeting virtually also. But we also have discussion groups that are born out of shared interest in the community. We're working against the brand transformation roadmap principles, so there's a shared kind of mental model and framework that all of our conversations are based on. And we're we like to say that we're disintermediating or disrupting in some way consultants, not because we don't want the consulting practice to thrive. We think it's important, but we want consulting expertise to be put against new challenges. And so we really try to help support our members in sharing what they're learning so that we can accelerate progress across the board.
Because so much of it's needed. Every brand needs to be a sustainable brand, for sure. Let's talk about COVID, because a lot of the core of your business was in the event business, face to face. And I think, you have survived, as many others have. I know it was scary and dicey, but maybe it made you stronger. So, how did Sustainable Brands fare during COVID? And I know that you've got your fall event, and it's going to be a hybrid?
It will be. I think everything we'll do going forward will be hybrid. And I think this is indicative of, as I said, we talked about the VUCA world that we live in. The pandemic is one disruption. Disruption requires that one be light on one's feet and learn how to pivot, and certainly learning how to create meaningful, engaging virtual conversation and virtual events, if you will, has been an important part of last year. I mean, we've effectively been able to reach more people in the last year than ever before. So I think that was good for the movement. And as I said, I don't believe that face-to-face is going to die. I think we all are longing to be back together face-to-face for many reasons. I think it's part of the human nature that we yearn to be connected physically. But there are people who can't travel for whatever set of reasons. And, we now, as I said, have things going on around the world all the time. So this field is moving more quickly, and this gives having a hybrid solution gives people the opportunity to participate in ways and places that they couldn't travel. We just held our first major hybrid event in Japan in the end of February, and it was very, very successful. And so we're excited about that.
You're moving your event date.
We did, yes.
Yeah. So can you and you're going back to this wonderful place. So can you talk about it? Because if you haven't been to it's Paradise Point, right?
It is,
in
yes.
San Diego. It's perfect. It's perfect pre-COVID, and it's perfect post. So can you give us the dates? Because I want people to sign up.
Oh, heavens. I think it's the 12th and 13th of October, if I have that right.
Okay.
It should be. It'll be actually 4 full days. So I'm sorry that I don't have the dates correct. Thank you for asking the question.
Okay, I'll make sure that we get those right. But talk about Paradise Point, because it's a very conducive environment for people. If you got the social distancing works, but talk about it, because it's really a different conference location.
It's a perfect setting because it is an island unto itself. There are bungalows all over the island, so there's no going into a hotel room. Everybody's sleeping room doors open to the outdoors, and we basically take over the island, and so that's as you've experienced a great 24/7 opportunity to be with a community of practice and build relationships that go far deeper than just hearing content, keynote speakers, or participating in breakout sessions. It's really all about what goes on after hours.
Certainly, yeah, and it may be like a perfect event to break the COVID lockdown.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah. Lots of outdoor space, 5 pools, beach surrounded by beach. So lots of opportunity for fire pits on the beach and small group get-togethers. Obviously, we are very excited about the progression of the vaccine. And California has already announced that it's going to be fully open and capacity by the end of June, I believe, or June 15th. Hopefully the variants that are percolating around won't impact that, but we're expecting to be able to convene a great group there and have it be safe and really get us back into those meaningful dialogues that it takes to move the world forward.
And I think a conference talking about sustainability is the perfect one to break the COVID.
Well, especially because really what we're talking about going forward, and this is the evolution of the sustainability field, is about regeneration. Mm-hmm. We're really calling out the fact that now that everybody understands that we are not on a sustainable path, sustainability in and of itself is not enough. We can't just get back to systems that sustain themselves. We actually need to promote and build systems that regenerate health and wellness on their own. So this is going to be a really powerful and compelling set of conversations and dialogue and case studies and things.
And regeneration, it's not just agriculture.
Not at all.
No. Can you explain it further for our listeners? Because I think it's going to be a new concept for many of them.
It's a new concept for most people. And again, the basis of it is this idea that we need to build systems that enable that system to restore itself and regenerate its own vibrancy. And that really plays out in our own human capacity, as well as our business capacity, as well as our agricultural activities, and really everything that we do. And it's an emerging field. It's very forward edge, and there are some really interesting areas of practice that are coming online as examples to help us all really point us to the future.
Regeneration, it's a big word. You're going to see a lot about it. So I'm glad that you're focusing on that. And certainly it's, again, cutting edge thought leadership for sustainable brands.
And certainly we all need some regeneration personally. We need to be regenerated, refreshed and rejuvenated, right?
Yeah, the late night hours at the conference are going to be really, really cool. I also know that you have wonderful webinars from members and also companies. I know that we had a client and we did one and we had hundreds of people listening in. It was great. And I know that also helped you during COVID because you had more individuals and companies, going into these very well attended and well thought out. So can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, it's just another format for online learning. We try to make sure that everything we do has a very compelling learning and engagement component to it. So we're not trying to just do product pitches for sponsored webinars. We have a series of sponsored webinars for sure, but we also have, we help our sponsors make sure that what they're delivering is really meaningful and helpful to the audience that we bring. So there's that. Plus we also do just editorially.
You do a great job promoting them. Apps get great attendance. Let's take a pause from our conversation with KoAnn to pivot to our In the Know segment today. I was fascinated to read an article that talks about how Chipotle is now offering employees free degrees in agriculture, culinary arts, and hospitality. This is part of their mission to cultivate a better world, and it has expanded its debt-free degree program to include nearly 100 degree options in these fields at 10 U.S. universities. I think this is fascinating because we know that Starbucks has created tremendous loyalty and commitment from its employees, providing its College Achievement Plan, which is a free college online education through Arizona State University. Recruiting young people to QSRs, quick service restaurants, or white tablecloth restaurants is really hard. They have a lot of choices these days. Thus, innovators such as Starbucks and now Chipotle are turning to fascinating ways to advance the education of their employees. It's smart for Chipotle to follow in Starbucks' footsteps because they recognize that young people can start out in a career at Chipotle, but they truly want to advance to something else that's closer to their personal passion and their vision for their long-term career. Kudos to Chipotle. I hope it works out really well. Now let's return to our conversation with KoAnn. So let's, I want to talk about the future.
Okay.
So you and I are going to have this conversation in 5 years. And so what do you wish that Sustainable Brands has accomplished in those 5 years? And what do you wish for just in general for the types of products and services and companies that are going to exist, not just in the U.S., but around the world?
I mean, I'm absolutely ambitioning for more on the ground local engagement and community building on every continent. We've got a great start in Africa, for example. We'd like to see that rekindled and resurrected and expanded. Same with all the other continents. There's just a lot of opportunity for bringing this work to other parts of the world and for creating more cross-continental dialogue and learning. So that's one big aspect to it. I think our whole community is moving more towards action orientation. For example, with Brands for Good, our goal, as I said, is to create new behavior change around 9 core consumer behaviors. And we are creating the tools to help companies understand how to think about behavior change. And then we are measuring through a sociocultural trend tracker how we're doing collectively at driving behavior change. So more measurable impact and actionable outcomes through the tools and frameworks and community network and support that we're enabling for each other.
You kind of pivoted to measurement because you have a focused conference on measurement. And I know it's evolving, but can you talk a little bit about that? Because it's not just about the words, it's the actions and then the impacts.
I mean, we launched a whole field of practice called the New Metrics Field of Practice more than a decade ago. This continues to be an area that's really important to us. Whether or not we have a conference focused on it is unclear, but the notion of really following and encouraging the trend towards measuring what matters and creating new forms for defining measures of value and measuring value creation outside of just financial value, but connecting those new forms of value to financial value creation is an important part of shifting the economic paradigm. So, yeah, we will definitely continue to push on that trend and bring the results of that to our customers.
Yeah, and I remember I was on a panel, and this was 6-7 years ago, and I met Just Capital, and that's when they were just coming out. Yeah, and now they are just doing wonderful, wonderful things in terms of redefining stakeholder capitalism and such. And I've had their CEO Martin Whitaker on the show, and he's coming up on another one. So terrific. Yeah, it's the people that you meet through Sustainable Brands are just A++, and they kind of blow your head away with their thoughtfulness and their thinking. Now I want to just pivot, as unfortunately we're getting to the bottom of our wonderful time together. But if you have a company that they know they want to be a sustainable business, a sustainable brand, but they're just going to start out, what should they do? What's your, guidance?
Come take our assessment.
Okay.
First and foremost, because people don't understand, in many cases, many companies who think they're nowhere actually are somewhere, but they just don't really understand all the different actions that they're taking that actually could be knit together to create a higher value return for society and for them as a business people. So I would say it starts with that. And we can help from there, advise on where a company that would come to us, where their performance is relative to the rest of the business world out there as far as we see it. And how they might think about where to prioritize their activities, because it's one thing is very true: we can't boil the ocean. If you're just getting started, it can feel overwhelming. I would say, going back to the be human, be humble. Don't worry about being honest and transparent about your reality. It starts with being willing to be humble and recognize that it's okay that you may be starting or you may be behind the game. But the beautiful thing is that there's so much more knowledge and wisdom out there today than there was 10 years ago, that it's very possible, and tools, knowledge, wisdom, and tools, and various forms of support, that it's really possible for somebody to catch up quickly thanks to that. So don't be intimidated is what I would say. And don't wait. Both things. Don't be intimidated and don't wait, because the world is moving.
Absolutely. The world is moving really fast. So this is a question I get all the time, which is that you have almost in the C-suite person. It might be the head of sustainability. It might be the chief communications officer that's now working in strategy. They get it. They know the competitive set. They see the data, changing consumer aspirations and such, employee aspirations. But they've got unfortunately, their CEO just it's not their thing. It's not his thing, her thing, or whatever. Do you have any recommendations on how they're going to influence or convince their CEO to begin to look at sustainability as a business driver and an opportunity versus, I'm not even going to deal with it?
I would say it's a bigger question than we have time for today, but I will say that's another part of the good news story, is that there's so much data out there to validate the business case that it's about research. Come to our website and ask and type in ROI of sustainability and see what you get, because there's just a lot to bring. I know we have a report on that topic that points to a dozen research reports that support the return on investment for sustainability, just as one example. There's just a lot of data out there. A little bit of homework.
Yeah, homework is always good. We like that. And you've got, great resources and tools. Are you thinking at all about bringing CEOs together under Chatham House rules and trying to, have conversations?
Not really. And I would say only because there's so many people trying to get at that stakeholder group, but we can't be all things to all people. And so, I have great relationships with a number of CEOs, and I appreciate being called into that. But CEOs have their own communities right now. We're more interested in enabling the communities they already belong to, with smart thought leadership and tools for helping enable their conversation to be better.
Well, that's wise, because you want to, go deep and narrow and really arm those that are sustainability leaders
and brand leaders. Again, our belief is that it's the brand that drives the economic ecosystem. So at the end of the day, sustainability is a support service to brand innovation. And our core stakeholder group, again, is that brand leader, sustainability expert, and innovation lead, and that triumvirate of stakeholders that determine how the company uses its resources, what the materials are, what the business models are, how the consumers, are encouraged to behave, and what they're encouraged to aspire to.
And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about communications, because, companies are all over the place, which is, let's make, we're going to make a, small donation, but a big announcement. We're going to do an ad. And then there's the ones that are humble and they don't say anything.
True.
What's your point of view on when you should communicate, how you should communicate? Because it's really confusing.
Super simple, transparent and authentic. Communicate often and transparently and authentically. That means, again, being willing to be humble and human, which means imperfect. And I think that's the challenge. We go from over exuberance and thus sometimes being at risk of greenwash or purpose wash, to being under communicative and being at risk of green hush or purpose hush, right?
Oh, I haven't heard the hush one. That's good. I'm going to use that.
And neither one of them are optimal. They leave money on the table, create risk. You want to be I always think, if you think about what you want out of your best friend, or out of your relationship, it's no different. Brand is about developing trust between you and your customers, and trust comes from being real, right? And doing what you say, and not over, promising, and being willing to be vulnerable. All those things that are, again, human, that we are attracted by, and lead to trust in our personal relationships, are the same things that impact brand trust.
What about who should be the voices? I mean, should it be the C-suite? Should it be the recipient? Should it be the employees? Should it be the supply chain? Who should be the voices of communications that's going to work?
Yeah, at the end of the day, again, if brand is who you are, what you do, and how you do it, your employees are your brand voice, like it or not. So, it's nice to have a C-suite that is all singing off the same song sheet, but more importantly, the company as a whole, including employees, need to be singing off the same song sheet. And that's not an easy thing. It is a doable thing. And I'm watching it unfold at various companies who are getting better at that. And that is exciting.
And I love that you say that, because I always say that the number one stakeholder is the employee.
Absolutely.
And they are your engine. And it's taken it was great that companies during the pandemic, that they really understood the safety of their employees was key. Mm-hmm. Most of them really rose to the occasion. And then they learned about their humanity, and hopefully they're going to be a little different going forward. So as we wind this down, and this has been a wonderful conversation, and I know it would be, can you give 2 or 3 recommendations to a company that's begun their journey? They're not the leader, but, whether it's to individuals or the CEO or the brand innovators, what are your I know you could give probably 20 recommendations, but, can you give a few?
Recognize that you're not starting from square one, because there's a lot out there. So I don't recreate the wheel, I guess, might be one of them. This is off the cuff. So don't recreate the wheel. Make sure that you're putting your resource and time into, areas that haven't already been explored. So scan the landscape, find a friend. And I hate to come back and say come to Sustainable Brands, but I do think that's wise counsel for pretty much anyone, because you will find friends, you will find what the best practice is out there right now, and a wealth of resources. Don't be discouraged. Be ambitious. Don't be afraid. I guess it's okay to have a dream. And not know how you're going to get there. I think a lot of companies I see get stymied by just uncertainty about how to get from where they are to where they would feel like they should be, or where they want to be. And again, that comes back to the be human, be humble, be helpful.
So that's wonderful. So KoAnn, I want to thank you for this conversation. You have been a pioneer. I know that I was at a recent Sustainable Brands, and they talked about the OGs of the whole practice, and I was named, but you are the OG. You are the mother, the father, the goddess, the queen,
and.
Yeah, the choir director. That's a good one. And I hope that you recognize how so many companies, brands, and individuals have thanks to you and what you've done. And I know it has not been an easy journey, but I think that I hope that you know that, and I believe so strongly, and so many others, that we revere you. We are just so honored to be in your ecosystem, and please keep going, because your time is now. And the world needs your leadership.
You're very sweet, Carol. I can only respond by saying the gift is mine. And I think if everybody has the opportunity to self-actualize the way I feel like I've had the opportunity to in this environment, the world will be a better place. So the gift is mine.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I can't wait to see you in Paradise Point in October.
Me too.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, me too.
So super. And listeners, join Sustainable Brands if you haven't. It is just absolutely, it's 10 times worth your investment, and you will learn so much and find so many happy and interesting, cohort of friends to truly advance your sustainability journey.
You take care, Carol. Thank you.